Alright. Oh, you mean like... One time. Yes.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna take my jacket off.
Take it off.
We'll be starting momentarily. There's one eating. Go figure.
You've been eating since I saw you. Like that. I got.
Do we have to do up high?
Right.
We do this. Let's see idiots. We'll go. Oh, that won't work. Oh, there we go.
All right. Some of this. No, I'm gonna get. All right. Ready? Well, hey guys. Start. Did we meet Earth today? Okay, that was you. I wasn't sure. So, yeah, come on up. Let's get rolling. Get started. Welcome back to the Bulletproof Your Body workshop. For those that are watching, for those that have been here, welcome back. For those that don't know me, my name is Dr. Ken Clark, and I'm a physical therapist, and I own a practice here in town called Purpose Physical Therapy, as you can see. And I have the privilege to actually treat almost half of my clients out of this space, thanks to Chris and thanks to Best Day. Also treat the other half of my clients mobile or concierge, so I can travel to the client as well. And so, again, I've also had the privilege to be able to speak at these Bulletproof Your Body workshop series. This is number 4 now, right? The 4th one, Bulletproof Your Body. So last month, I got to talk about the shoulder. And it was more specifically really the rotator cuff mostly, and anything under the subacromial space. So anything that has to do with rotator cuff injury or labral tear or impingement, all those types of things. So with this month, I kind of want to do an extension of last month. We'll talk about the shoulder complex, but focus more on the scapular stabilizers. And so we'll talk about scapular stability, what the role of the scapula is in optimal shoulder function and in the body as well. So we'll cover a little bit of the anatomy, review some of the stabilizers and movers of the shoulder blade. We'll talk about how those muscles move the shoulder in the different planes of motion. We'll do a little bit of practice with those and talk about maybe some exercise ideas and a little bit of brainstorming at the end as well. So a little, I'll preface it with this. Just, we always say this, when we talk, we only have 30 minutes, so we try to get as much information in as possible. So like always, if you guys are watching this here or online, and you're especially interested in the topic and we don't cover through everything, just feel free to raise your hand, ask a question. We'd love to answer questions afterwards. So after the presentations, find us, ask us some questions. We'd love to be able to answer those and to talk with you. So any questions so far before you move on? Anybody? All right, thank you. So here we go. We're right through that, so we can go to the next slide. Next slide. So let's review the muscles here of the scapula. So the shoulder blade, the scapula, if you guys recall from last month, is really this floating bone and on our body, right? And if you remember, we talked about there's really only one bone or bone-to-bone articulation or attachment of the shoulder to the rest of the axial skeleton, to the body. Believe it or not. Does anyone know what joint that is? You can name it, shout it out. SC joint. So the sternoclavicular joint, which is right here. So the collarbone that comes and attaches to the sternum is the only bone-to-bone attachment of the entire shoulder to the body. It's crazy, right? So it's a floating bone in essence. And so if you can imagine that it has to rely very heavily on a neuromuscular control from the brain, the nervous system, controlling the muscles, all working together to quite literally stay on the body and to move, right? So there's said to be, I think, Tonya, correct me if I'm wrong, around 17 muscles that actually have an attachment point, whether they originate or attach to the shoulder blade. Something like that. And that actually includes the 4 rotator cuff muscles that we talked about last month. So not going to hammer too much on those. The main stabilizers of the shoulder blade, we're going to go through those. It's going to be the Serratus Anterior, which you'll see it. What's that? Yeah. So we'll see a picture here next. But Serratus Anterior, the traps, the trapezi, so that's 3 parts. Everybody knows what the upper trap is. That's the most common one. So we have upper trap, we have a middle trap, and we have a lower trap that work together. And then you can even throw in there, it's not listed here, it's called the Levator Scapula muscle. It sits underneath the trap, and it connects to the skull and then attaches to the tip corner of the shoulder blade. So there's that one. And then the lats, I'm not going to hit too much on the lats because Dr. Tonya is going to talk about that, and I don't want to steal her thunder. So, but I'll mention it briefly because it does interact with the shoulder blade, and it's important. And then last but not least, the rhomboids. Rhomboids minor, and there's a major. So we're going to go through those. Chris, go on to the next slide. I want you guys to see this photo. So these are the muscles that I just listed. And I want to show you this because I really want you to be able to appreciate the muscle fibers, the direction of the fibers, because that's going to be really important in how force is generated in the direction of movement that is acted on the arm and the shoulder blade, right? So the striations, I don't know if you guys can see them, but the little stripes on the muscles, right? So on the left side, the trap is shown, the right side is not. So let's talk about the trap here. The upper trap, which everyone knows about, again, it's going to originate at the base of the skull and some extra parts here and then the cervical spine. And it's going to come track downward a little bit, so inferior and then laterally. And it's going to make its attachment on the outer third of the collarbone. Okay? And then the middle trap is going to be in the cervical thoracic spine area. And if you notice, a lot of these fibers here, it doesn't really differentiate well in this photo, but the middle is right here. And these fibers are going to track horizontally and attach to the scapula, the acromion, okay? And then the lower trap, which is down here, you can see it starts here over the lat, and it's going to kind of go up at this upward motion and diagonally towards the scapula as well. So the trap, or the lower trap, we're really going to talk about heavily today because it's really important in the serratus anterior. I'm going to focus on those. So guys, good with those ones? Okay, and then if you remove the trap, underneath is that levator scapula muscle that we just talked about. It's that small little muscle that attaches to the tip of the clavicle, the scapula, into the base of the skull. And then down here, let's talk about the rhomboids first before serratus. So here's your rhomboids. It's the minor and major muscle. Again, it's not really differentiated here in the picture, but the minor is going to be more so on top, originating in the cervical spine and attaching to the kind of the top third of the medial side of the scapula, which is the side most close to the spine, to the body, midline of the body. And then the rhomboids is going to be a little bigger, and it's going to be the cervical thoracic area, and it's going to attach to the lower third of the medial border of the shoulder blade. Okay? Again, pay attention to these fibers here. And then lastly, the serratus anterior. this right here, let me show you this. This is the serratus posterior. It doesn't really affect the scapula so much, but it looks similar to the anterior one. Can you guys see that? Good? So that muscle is, it's gonna originate on the rib cage, so ribs 1 through 8, and then it's gonna track around the rib cage and attach on the underside of the shoulder blade. Kind of wrap around and grab onto that underside. And that muscle is also really important. It's known as the boxer's muscle. If you guys see that really striped, ripped side here, that uppercut muscle, right? So it provides this suction cup type of effect on the scapula. So if it's really working, it's really healthy and it's well, it should stay pretty flush against the shoulder blade. The rib cage. And then last, again, I'm not gonna hammer too much on it, but here's the lats, the huge muscle here that attaches the lower back, hip, thoracolumbar fascia, and it's gonna track and make its way across the scapula a little bit and attach to the arm. Okay, good. So those are the main stabilizers and movers of the shoulder blade. All right, so let's talk about how these muscles actually move the shoulder blade. And we'll start with kind of this basic biplanar motions. All right, so next slide. The motions that, that occur at the shoulder blade are going to be elevation, depression, retraction, protraction, posterior tilting, anterior tilting, internal, external rotation, and upward and downward rotation. All right, so let's practice a little bit. Next slide, Chris. We'll practice. All right, now can you go back to the anatomy picture? 2 slides up. Okay, so let's practice a little bit. You guys don't have to stand, but in your seat, let's do elevation of the shoulder blades. So that's like a shrug, right? So what muscles elevate the shoulder blades? Anybody want to guess? Throw a name out there. Upper traps, and the levator scapula. Okay, so that's elevation of the shoulder blade, right? The next one's going to be depression. So that's going to be pulling down. Anybody want to guess which muscles? Which one? Low traps. Not so much the rhomboids. The lats will do it a little bit as well, mostly the lower trap and the lats. And if you remember the rhomboids, the fibers are kind of directed in this almost horizontal and slightly up, slanted up. So they're going to more retract, which is the next one. Retract the shoulder blades. Okay? So that's retraction. Rhomboids, what else? Middle traps. Middle traps will also retract the shoulder blades together. Okay? And what's the opposite of retraction? We're going to have protraction. So that's pulling not back, but out, away, around the rib cage. And that's the action of the serratus anterior mostly, yeah. Serratus anterior, that's the boxer's muscle. It's going to really think about it coming on here and grabbing that shoulder blade and pulling it forward around the rib cage. All right? Everybody good on those? All right, so those are the basic movements of the shoulder blade. And then upward and downward rotation, those are going to be more multi-planar motions. When we elevate our arms, the shoulder blades are going to rotate up, tilt a little bit, and turn. Okay, but those are the basic movements. Next couple slides. Good, down. So really, what's the role of the shoulder blade? Right? Why is it there? What's the purpose of it? Simply, it's to provide a stable base for the arm to move, in the simplest terms, right? Not just a stable base, but a dynamically stable base. So you saw all those muscles, right? And the bone in the shoulder is floating on the body. So it takes a lot of coordinated effort to move the shoulder blade and dynamically position the glenoid. If anybody remembers the glenoid from last month, it's the socket part of the ball and socket joint, right? And so the role of those muscles is to move this shoulder blade in certain positions for the glenoid to be able to move our arm in the most efficient manner depending on the task that we're asking ourselves to do, right? So lots of coordination. And here's an example, right, of having a stable base or an unstable base. So take, for example,
this analogy. If you, let's say you got to fix something on the side of your house, right? So you grab a ladder, right? You put it up, against the side of the house. If you put the ladder on a kind of an uneven surface, right, or a shaky bottom, what's going to happen when you try to climb up it? The higher you go up, it's probably going to be more shaky and wobbly, right? But what happens if 2-3 people come and hold the base of the ladder? You can easily climb up and down smoothly, right? That's where this saying, this concept, proximal stability, promotes distal mobility. What does that mean? Proximal just means, again, closest to the midline of the body. Proximal, distal is further away. Think of fingertips to the shoulder blade, right? So the more stable your base is, in theory, the better mobility you have out here. Make sense? So it's not just, unlike just a ladder on the side of a house, that's one spot. But you got to think of the role of the scapula and the shoulder blade is to move it up here and stabilize, or move it back here and stabilize. See what I'm saying? So it's really, really, it's an important function of upper body movement, not just upper body movement. And there are some theories out there. I don't know how much evidence there is. Dr. Tonya, maybe you do, but there is something to say about, we use this term, what was it? Regional interdependence. That's what we talked about last month. Regional interdependence just means that somewhere in the body, right, can affect somewhere else in the body either distally or proximally, right? It has an effect. It's like anything down the chain has an effect over the other. And so I would say and argue the other role for the scapula or the shoulder blade is essentially going to be this transfer point of energy and force. So when we get into some of this more dynamic, like athletic type of movements, like pitching or throwing, right, or swinging, that type of stuff, we have to be able to generate force from our hips and our core, right? So when we're pulling, it's creating this potential energy, and let's say we're going through the swing phase, we got to transfer that energy, create force, which goes through the hips, through the back and core, the thoracolumbar fascia, the lats, right? You saw that big lat muscle that came up through the body in this kind of rotational component, which crosses and affects the shoulder blade, right? And then the shoulder blade takes that and does what it needs to do, right? And everything that we talked about. That's all I'll say about the lats. After Tonya, the rest is going to be yours. All right? So does that make sense, guys, of kind of the role of the shoulder blade? It needs to have a strong, stable base for our arm to move and to do the things that we love. So what happens when we don't have the best stability, right? We call it scapular dyskinesia. So that just means simply that the scapula it's kind of moving wonky. Doesn't have appropriate mechanics, right? There's a couple different definitions, but that's the simplest term. And so what can cause that? It can be postural issues. It can be muscular fatigue, weakness in the scapular muscles. It can be bony blockage, previous fractures and issues at the collarbone. It can have a huge effect. And not only that, but pain in general. Pain, rotator cuff tear, labral tear at the actual shoulder joint can affect mechanics at the shoulder blade, right? And so all those things can cause that. And now there's this question in the literature, it's not super clear, but is it the cause? Is scapular dyskinesia a cause, or is it effect to all these things that I named? But, in the general population, we're just unsure, right? But what we do know is that, and I'll say this first, because there are a lot of people who have what we would consider scapular dyskinesia. That scapula is just moving funky compared to the other side. But they're asymptomatic. They don't have any pain. They don't have any injuries. They're functioning fine, right? But then when we look at more advanced populations, athletics, there seems to be maybe a little bit more of a risk factor for potential injury, of particularly overuse. But in the general population, We're just not sure. But we do know that those that do have glenohumeral joint pathology, frozen shoulder, rotator cuff tear, labral, all that stuff, that in almost every single one of those that have issues there, there's going to be issues at the shoulder blade, right? Stability issues. So it doesn't really matter right now if it's a cause or effect. The best thing or the most important thing that you can gather from this is that incorporating a program where you're working on scapular stabilization in your rehab program or your training program is important. It's important. Either way. And that's the take-home message I want you guys all to have today. Another thing I forgot to mention, nerve injuries too, which are not as common, but you can have nerve injuries that literally create like paralysis in those muscles. And that's not as common as the other ones that I just mentioned. So we're good. We're good on that. Any questions? Anybody have a question that's watching? Can type and ask it away. So that's scapular stabilization. That's scapular dyskinesia, kind of in a nutshell, right? And so, again, I'll say this. The exercises we'll run through are just examples. There's literally like thousands that we can do to work on scapular stabilization in the rotator cuff. And so if you're pain-free, you don't have any pain, you're training, right? Take into account these things. There's nothing wrong with building resiliency and just working on these exercises. However, I'll say this like I say it every single month. If you have somebody, if you're training somebody or if you're being trained and you have some pain, some issues at the shoulder that are just causing you to say ouch or like I can't do this, get it checked out first by a licensed professional, right? Get it checked out, get the evaluation done, and then we can program these things into your plan of care. Because sometimes some of them might not be appropriate, some of them might have a lower entry point. So I'll just say that. If you're dealing with an issue, an injury, don't try to push through it. It's one thing, to see and wait and see if it goes away. But if it's just nagging you, get it looked at, have it evaluated. And sometimes that only takes that session and then you're kind of off on your way. So I'll say that. Let's go through some examples of scapular stabilization. So the robberies, right? There's two variations here. Now, if you remember, I said the lower trap and the serratus are going to be, they're notorious for weak in a lot of people, right? But we see those being the culprits, or those are the ones that we really need to hit, okay? It's the lower traps and the serratus anterior. And so this is the banded robbery, and it's going to target the retractors in the lower trap. So there's a banded version, which I'll go through here in a second. And then there's a Swiss ball version or laying on your stomach. So the benefit to this, to target the lower trap, is that it takes gravity out of the equation at least a little bit, right? And because we're standing upright against gravity and the alignment of the upper trap is upwards, right? It's more of a postural muscle. Yeah, I'll model it. Thank you. And so, thank you. Yeah, perfect. Exactly. So, going on our stomach like that is going to take gravity away from the upper trap a little bit, right? Because when you're upright, the natural tendency for the upper trap is to fight gravity. So it's more likely to kind of overpower and help out the lower trap. So this is a good way to take that away a little bit. And so she's going to do this robbery, kind of this W position here. Yep, and you can use weights or a band, and you're going to go down this way and pull back those shoulders right here, right? And just the direction and the line of force, remember, think of the fibers, how they're oriented. The lower trap is going to be down this way. So it's going to really help to target those, right?
Why do they call it the robbery?
It's called the robbery, I think, and no one's ever told me this.
I've never heard it called.
So, like, let's say if you're getting caught robbing a bank, right? And you turn around and you're like this. Like, it's like a surrender. Like, oh yeah,
Like
it could be a little whip back.
I'm like, yoink, that's my money.
That could be it. It could be robbery.
Don't shoot.
Get it from me. I think it's that. I think it's like, no, that's surrender.
I'm
So-
all, that's a yoink.
Great exercise to really target the scapular muscles, right? Awesome. Next one, Dr. Tonya, you can stay if you'd like. All right, here we go. Seated press-ups. Here, sit on the floor, Dr. Tonya. All right, put one here, and we're going to put one here. Okay, elbows are going to be locked out. So this is going to be a seated press-up, which, does anybody remember which direction or which movement is going to be enacted? On, actually, yeah, let's turn around. It'll be better. When she presses up, it's going to be a depression of the shoulder blade. So really, again, it's going to hit the lower trap. I don't like to focus too much on reps here. I like to focus on what we call time under tension. So build that tension, right? And we're going to press up. So straighten out those elbows. Tonya, you're going to push up and sink down without bending your elbows. As low as you can, right? Really control that tension, and you're going to press up. Boom, right? It's not going to look like a ton of movement.
Everybody do this on your chair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you got armrests there. Maybe some of you.
Yeah, and if their chair's not wide enough, just sit somewhere else.
And if you
this
can't,
is super fun.
Yeah, and if you can't lift yourself off, that's fine. Just push into the chair at least, and pretend you're lifting your buttock off, right, without bending the elbow. Okay. So I like to focus again on time under tension, not necessarily reps, just controlling. Don't lose the tension on the up or the top of the rep or the bottom of the rep. So don't sit back down and lose that tension. Hold it. Okay?
Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. Don't plop it either. So that's another great exercise to really work on the control of the shoulder blade. All right? Next one. Banded pull aparts. These are variations we can do, like the cheerleader exercise where you're just kind of retracting here. You can go across in a diagonal this way. Again, here, switching. It's going to really target those postural stabilizers, those scapular stabilizers. You can do this standing, sitting, laying down, which is going to be a little harder, right? So it's another one. What do we got left here? Prone T's and I's. So there we go. We got the ball. Move these over.
I mean, I could actually...
You can do it on the floor. So you can play around with the position of the forearm and the thumb. That's going to change things just slightly, so, right? So I'm going to direct Tonya here. So we're going to start with a T. That's just going to go straight horizontal, squeezing that shoulder blade and initiating from the shoulder blade. She's going to maintain that as she rotates down, thumb down, and she's going to go down, come back up, initiate, squeezing the shoulder blades, maintaining that as she comes back to horizontal, boom, and then repeats that for whatever the necessary number of reps or time under tension, whatever the focus is, right? Look how she's doing a great job. These are like swimmers. Perfect. Excellent. So, great ones for the shoulder blade, right? Closed chain. So a lot of these were open chain, meaning that the distal end is free in space, right? Now the distal end is going to be fixed to a hard surface, like the ground. So, Dr. Tonya, you're going to go in a push-up position. The Ys? You want to do the Ys? Yeah. Ys are great too. These are hard. These are really hard. And there's ways that we can modify to make them a little easier too. But lower trap, good. Guys, remember? Lower trap's down here, and it's going to kind of come up this way. So look at her arm about this 120-degree angle, right? If this is 90, 120, lifting up, is that lower trap is really going to pull down there, and it's really going to hit those. That's why it's so hard, because most people are kind of weak in that spot, right? So great lower trap exercise right there. Closed chain. You don't have to have a step. You can do a variation of it, kind of just walking and crawling and stepping up with the shoulder blade. See, you're stabilizing in a closed chain manner, right? Great. You can add a step in. You can add a band around the wrist to make it a little harder, more challenging. I'll hold it so you don't slip.
Try little bird arms.
There.
Do as I say.
Yeah, and notice as she kind of moves in and out, that shoulder blade is holding tension, and it's going to be retracting, protracting a little bit, and it's going to be upward, downwardly rotating just a smidge, right? But all of those muscles are working together to hold a really strong base there. All right, that's it. Any questions?
Can we do a regional interdependence example for the...
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Juan. Nope. Come on, bring it. Oh, snap. You got this.
40 seconds. Man, that's good timing.
I was thinking about you when we were doing this. So, go ahead and assume the position for the press ups. I want to add the abs.
Go away. Yeah, go. Take the lead.
Okay, so elbows straight. Okay, lift your butt and then lower it down. Okay, so if you wanted to add the rest of the body, specifically this part of the body, can you lift your feet?
Ah.
Both your feet at the same time? No. I
Yeah.
bet you can. Try it.
Yeah.
Put them together. Hold them right next to each other so you can build tension. I know you can do it. Come on.
Sink in, right? Sink press.
Yeah.
And see if you can lift it.
Oh my God, do that.
Oh, you got it!
Yeah.
Yes! I knew you could do it.
Here's a little
Example of regional interdependence.
here's a little regression to that. I'll show an example here, right? So if I want to be able to do that, right, I would probably put something here too. But I can do it with a shorter lever as well. If that's too hard, you can do it with one leg, but go ahead and bend the knees and do it in a surface where you have something to lift. But then you can lift up, and then you can lift your knees towards your chest. It's hard to do that without having a little lip here, but you shorten the lever. So a longer leg is going to be really hard. It's going to be hard too without anything to lift yourself. But great example, Tonya.
You can practice that at home. You can get strong. I'm sweating.
So that concludes scapular stabilization. Thank you. Dr. Ken of Purpose Physical Therapy, if you have a question, reach out to me. Reach out to Chris, reach out to Tonya, and check us out. Thanks, guys. I hurt my shoulder a little bit doing that. Thanks, man.
It's always fun to see what I have on my PowerPoint.
You'll just have to hit start.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Let me know when you're ready, Freddie. Awesome. That's the chair.
Yeah.
Would you like to at the start of my PowerPoint?
Thanks, man. Need help with that? You're good.
Would like to go to the start of my PowerPoint. Keep going back. Okay, everyone, while they're testing that, stand up, buttercups. Okay, let's just kind of shake it out a little bit. So I'm going to be talking about the mid portion of your body. So that last little bit that Dr. Ken did was actually a perfect kind of segue into my content, which is going to be like torso it up, buttercups. So let's just do something where we're going to use our midsection of our bodies. Remember old school? Okay, I'm dating myself. Old school PE, you do like these ones? Do that 5 times. 3, 4, 5. And now, arms out, elbow to opposite knee. 2, 3, 4, 5. Fantastic. So now we just introduced you to the torso. Let's see if we got to the front. What's happening? Okay, anyhow, touch your toes.
You touch your toes, kind of wiggle around back here for a minute or two. Stretch all that out. Get kind of just
lubed up and ready to roll, because we're going to talk about this portion. Should we? Well, sure, that'll work. So I'm going to be talking about this portion. I'm Dr. Tonya. I provide patient care out of Best Day Fitness. I also do mobile visits and a few other things. So I'm really excited to be a part of this Bulletproof Your Body series. It's super, super fun. Hello to everyone out there in the cyber world. Please do not hesitate to type in questions, comments, or concerns that you have as I'm talking, and we will try to address those. And same thing with y'all in the audience, because you know, it's y'all is singular. Wait, all y'all is plural. So all y'all in the audience here. So it's always fun to see what I have on my PowerPoints. It's always like a little discovery. You know, I kind of throw them together and then I forget about them. So here is just, I kind of like that little schematic of the torso. It kind of goes through a lot of the different movements that the torso and the shoulders kind of do. And so I'd like to start off with just talking the middle part of your body, the middle block, your torso. It really connects all the other parts of your body. It connects your shoulders to your hands to your feet. It connects your shoulders to your hip. And that everything really works in a diagonal pattern, but that actually, write that down. We'll talk about that in another Bulletproof Your Body. We'll talk about diagonal patterns, because that would be fantastic. So let's see what's on the next slide. Oh, here are my objectives. I'm going to talk about the key muscles of the torso. I would like to talk about the regional interdependence. Gosh, I remember what I did. And then we'll talk about some strengthening exercises. All right, next. This is my favorite part of all of this.
White screen? Oh, there it is. Oh, here it comes.
Okay. I want you to watch this video.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hit play?
Oh, yes and no.
It just fades in. It doesn't.
There's a link on the bottom. I wonder if that is.
Well, that's actually the address on the bottom. You could link it though, but just a second. We're going to work out the technology. So I promise it's worth the wait. Give us 1 second, and then we'll give up and YouTube it. This is so worth watching. What
would be YouTube?
Well, that's the I mean, because it worked in my PowerPoint. I tried it like 100 times. There should just be a play button down there somewhere in the. Yeah, just. So that's if you copy that address. So if you copy that address and put it into, I don't know why that video is not working. I'm sorry, everyone. So it's just really, it's absolutely worth watching. It's worth waiting for, I promise you all. It's really, really cool.
no pressure.
Super cool.
It better be really cool.
It's really cool. Wait for it. Watch this. So can you play that again while I babble around it? I would like for you to notice that this person does not have legs. And at first blush, if you were to only look from the from above the glutes, if I were to cover this here and you didn't know that there were no legs, you would be thinking what? That this dude is walking. I forgot to do that part, but anyhow. So for me, that video is really profound because it's probably the most, it's the most powerful example of regional interdependence. And when I discovered this video too long ago for me to admit, it was I was working with high level, I was working with elite level runners. And we used this video, and it was before like strength training was kind of a thing with runners. Now like everyone does it, but this is when we were trying to play the case for the importance of runners developing their lats. We'll get back to this in the video in a moment. You can just keep playing it if you don't mind. So the lats, as Dr. Ken talked about, it's that big muscle, it's the bat wing muscle, it's the whole back. So what do you think is moving the pelvis forward? It's the lats and then the ab complex. And then you're using some extra, what's the word? Extra spice by adding the shoulders in. So you see, we don't have the legs and the lever arm to be moving the person forward. So the other muscles are regionally interdependent. They're all working together to propel that pelvis forward. So for anyone who who is any type of an athlete of any sort, this is probably the most powerful example of how the whole body works together. And just because you're a runner doesn't mean you only strengthen your legs, because there's data that shows that if you have stronger lats, those runners have greater endurance and they finish stronger because they have this whole big back muscle that's helping propel them forward towards that end when their legs are kind of done. So we can go ahead and, let's just watch this one more time. So we're looking at that pelvis advancement facilitated only through torso muscles. So cool, right? So the first time I saw this, I was teaching, I was in a running course, and that's what they did, is they started off and they said, do some gait analysis. And we're like watching, we're like, oh, a little bit of extra shoulder motion, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then they took the thing away and we're like, oh, no legs. Anyhow, that's a congenital condition. If it's congenital, it's called AMELIE, A-M-E-L-I-E, or I-A. Okay, do you guys want to watch it one more time? It's so cool, right? You should be just learning stuff just by watching this. Especially anyone who works with like training, strength training, personal training. It should just be like, holy crap, the shoulder blade's connected to the hip, the pelvis. Let's watch it one more time. I want to point out that diagonal pattern that we want to talk about in our future content. The one you're talking about is he also doesn't have. He was a thalidomide baby, so he doesn't have the. But yeah, I'm not sure. I would imagine that he is deserving of being a motivational speaker for sure. So let's take a look at how the shoulder is contributing to the movement of the pelvis. So the right shoulder comes back, and that brings the left pelvis forward. Left shoulder comes back, right pelvis comes forward. So you've got that diagonal connection. So if you're always doing stuff like this, and you're never getting any diagonalness, you're not capitalizing on regional interdependence. You're not building your proximal stability so you can have distal mobility. You got to have something stable upon which something needs to move. Okay, let's go to my next slide, see what's on there. That's just my favorite. So if you just type in walking with no legs into YouTube, you'll come up with, that usually is the first one that'll pop up, but you'll have other cool ones to watch for that. So this is another example of how the torso connects the kinetic energy to the legs and to the arms. So in this instance, you can see that he's using his entire body to wind up, but what's the body part that's going to be moving the most? We got all this stability here, kinetic energy, and then when he pitches, it's that arm. The arm isn't You cannot create 100, what's a fast pitch for baseball players? Like 100 miles? Yeah, you can't create a 100-mile-an-hour pitch with your scrawny little bird arms. Well, my scrawny little bird arms, for sure. But even if you have a big, brawny boy arm, you're not going to be able, that's how people get injured. When we're looking at movement analysis, we're looking at how the whole body is propelling the limb forward. And so you can see all the power is coming through from the torso, from the massive bat wing lats, and then the abdominals in the front. They're all coordinated, working together like the shoulder muscles like Dr. Ken was talking about. So that's one example of a movement pattern. Let's go to the next one. You can see it in baseball. Same movement pattern in golf. In order to get a good golf swing, the golf instructors, they're always talking about getting the hips forward. The hips have to snap forward because that's where all the energy comes from. Here's a fun fact about Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. If you look at the difference between between their golf swing, you'll look at Jack Nicklaus and, anyhow, Jack Nicklaus, wait, is this probably, which I'll go right here. Jack Nicklaus, and I'm not a golfer, but Jack Nicklaus, if you see when he swings, he stays mid-range through all of his entire swing. He's kind of scrappy, not as finessey and not as Tiger Woods, but guess who's stayed healthy for decades? Because his tissues are never torqued to the end. He's fully mastered the maintaining and recruiting and creating kinetic force through his torso, and he stays mid-range, so he's not torquing out his tissue. Now, Tiger Woods, on the other hand, now granted, he's a great deal longer, taller. His lever arms are significantly longer. So had somebody, ideally what would have happened when he was younger was that somebody would have said, hey, stay a little mid-range so you can stay healthier longer. Because what happens with him, his swing, for lack of a better way of explaining it, it's violent. It's powerful, it's quick, but he goes all the way to the end range. So think about this. If you're twisting your spine all the way to the end range with your 6'3" or 4" or whatever every single time, and you don't have super good, strong control, you just get torque, torque, torque. And guess what part of his body is broken down? Is the spine. So there's something to be said for that force generation in the torso. That was just kind of a fun fact. Anywho, okay, so next, same thing with tennis. They're not out here hitting the tennis racket. They're not hitting the ball with their arm. That's asking for an injury because they're putting that tissue at end range and they're trying to create force with a smaller muscle groups. If you're creating force through all of your body, if your right glute is driving your left shoulder, then you've got power. That's where the power comes from. And so so that's what I want to really talk about today. And drive home is how everything's connected and really harness the power of your body through diagonal patterns, but through connecting things, the connections that are there. So let's go to the next one. Let's see what I have next. Ooh, there we go. Oh, look, there's the lats. Next. We already talked about it. See how massive? Oh, wait, let's go back. So just see how big that is. It connects here and then to your low back. So it's this whole big back muscle. And that's how Juan was able to lift his whole body and that was lats. A lot of lats, a lot of scap muscles too, but the big massive muscle is your lats. If you're trying to learn how to do a push-up or pull-up, what's the first muscle you need to strengthen? Lats. Yeah, it's not these muscles. These little guys are not lifting your body. Your lats are lifting your body. And this is where physical therapy really shines because our training is understanding motor patterns, which is like the neurological connection to your muscles. And not only how muscles are contracted, like the strength, but the order in which they're contracted. And so Dr. Ken was talking about like that shoulder complex. It's actually like a symphony. Those 17 muscles have to not only be strong, but they have to come in at the right timing and then go away at the right timing. Because those muscles have to be coordinated, strong at the right time and the right places. And so that's one of the most powerful things to understand. So there we go, with big old lats. Maybe there's hope for me yet to being able to do a pull-up. And then the abdominals. You can see here the external obliques are kind of, they connect in through the ribs. So your abdominal muscles control your breathing. So if you, and the converse is there as well. Your breathing affects your abdominal muscles. So if somebody's tense, if you're having pain in this region and you notice you're shallow breathing, increasing your breathing, moving those muscles, that can really reduce the discomfort of symptomology that you're having and your overall tension. And so external obliques they run this way. So if you think about, if you want to know what a muscle does, you just look at the line of the fibers, like Dr. Ken was saying, and just think about what would happen if it goes short. So if a muscle starts here and it ends here, and it shortens, it brings the structures on either side together. So if this muscle gets shorter, it's going to bring these ribs down if this is staying still. But if this is staying still, it's going to bring this up, which is what was happening with Juan when he was doing that, when he was lifting his legs at the same time. So that's super awesome. And then the rectus abdominis is the one that's in the middle. And because the fibers go this way, it brings you this direction. And then the internal obliques are a little bit more this way. And so that's going to be a little bit more rotational and then increasing the intra-abdominal pressure. All right, next. I think we're done. Well, yeah, so anyway, just talking about the rib muscles and how those are really important, and it's super painful. So if you ever have like pain in a rib, like if you're breathing and it hurts and you kind of want to cry a little bit because you can't breathe, and then you get scared because you can't breathe, there's little nerves that are in those intercostal muscles. Intercostal just means between the ribs. Just apply some compression, and then breathe into it. So don't avoid breathing. You just need to breathe in the, what did you call that? Sustained tension? Yep. Yeah. Wait, tell me again. I don't even remember. Tension over time. Time under tension. That translates over, or it transfers over to multiple different ways of thinking. So that time under tension happens if you're having some nerve pain in those intercostals. That was just a random, because I had somebody who was having that. She was crying on Saturday. I'm like, put your hand on your rib cage. Okay, next. All right, let's just I wanted to talk about a couple of options for exercises that you can use to activate the midsection of your body. So this would be a Russian twist. Who would like to be my model? Do we have a thing? Yes. Oh, what should we get? Go sit and I'll get you a big heavy weight. Oh, I was going to get you a big heavy weight. So if you're doing the Russian twist, let's talk about let's talk about stability on mobility. So if he puts his feet on the floor, his pelvis is firmly rooted in the floor, and he keeps it close. Okay, keep the thingy close. Now twist. Okay, that's what muscle group is being specifically targeted?
Obliques.
The ones that are moving. Yeah, so just the midsection here. Yeah, exactly. Lats, obliques, exactly. So if you want to make it harder, so bring it, no, you're good, you're right. You are correct. So bring it close. Short, is a lever arm long or short with him holding the thingy? Short lever arm. How do you make this exercise harder?
Longer lever arm?
Yeah, longer lever arm. See, it's that easy to progress an exercise. To make it harder, just make the lever arm longer. Just like we did, Dr. Ken, we did with Juan. Make it harder, make it shorter. If it's too difficult, you don't have to give up on that exercise. Change it a little bit, change it using the parameters based on physics, and then just make it doable. Don't quit the exercise. Make it possible. Okay, so we increase the lever arm, all right? And so now let's say we want to make it even more difficult. What happens, so hold it close, now lift your feet off the ground. Now how much stability does his pelvis have right now? A whole lot of not much, right? So that's going to make, that's reducing, you can go ahead and put your feet down. That's reducing the stability. So if you have less stability, do you need more or less strength to control it? More strength, right? So it's that easy to progress an exercise. Just change the parameters slightly. Don't give up on them. All right, let's see the next one. Let's see what I got. Okay, and then chops. We can just model the chops. Oh, actually. No, the chops are good. Chop is just, like chopping wood. So you're coming from up to down. So if you're making this movement, what's the muscle Dr. Ken was talking about that you're going to... Everybody stand up. Hold our hands together. Bend your knees a smidge. Look way up. And then come down to your opposite knee. And then come back up. And then... pull it down a little faster. Come back up. Now do it super, super slow, but have it come from your torso. Don't move your arms. Move your torso. What muscle are you feeling? And I want to trigger you to feel this muscle here. Yeah. Yes. And what's the other one? And what's the other one that's here that connects into those ribs? Yeah, so you're getting all those muscles by moving in this diagonal. So feel that. Feel how much you're moving, and then go down, back to up. What are your hips doing? When you come up, what's happening here? You're naturally using the glutes to control that movement. So that's a nice way to put it all together. And if we connect a bunch of body parts together, what is that term that we've been using? Regional interdependence, meaning this region is dependent on this region, which is dependent on this region. So, I think go to the next one. I can't remember if I have. Okay, good. So let's brainstorm on another exercise or two that will target your torso. Don't overthink it.
What about like a push-up with some kind of like opening up of your upper body?
Ooh. Walk me through it. Oh. I can't do a push-up.
no, reach your left arm towards the sky. Shift
side plank.
Like that.
Ooh, so how would I make it easier?
On your knees.
Oh, and, okay, yeah, and we could be here.
Yeah.
Excellent. How do we make it harder?
Lift one leg, lift the leg up with you. Yeah. Lift that leg.
How do we add a weight?
Oh, that too.
To that lever arm, because that makes the lever arm, because the reason I suggested that is because it stays in the same progression. So lever arm, increase lever arm, so then we have the same amount of stability. If we lift up the foot, now we have significantly less stability. So just be mindful of the variables that you're changing. So if this is challenging to somebody, throw some weight on there, and that's going to be challenging in a way that they can master it. That's fantastic. Okay.
I got one.
Wait, no, audience. No, I want to hear yours. Come on.
No.
Mike. Juan. Something, anything.
Anything can really activate the midsection, like a lunge with like a twist.
Ooh, let me see. Okay, come on up.
Oh, he's doing slideshow. Is he no slides for a minute?
This is the end. So what does this do?
So you just lunge back.
Okay. What if that's too hard for them? Shorten the lever arm? Heck yeah. What if it's easy?
Add some weight.
Yes? Well, let's do what you were just doing. So what if we added movement? Does that make it easier or harder?
Harder.
So do what you just did, where you're here, and then you can come up and back down and come up to it, right? That's an advanced lunge. So we've got, where's the stability coming from? Just keep doing it. Stability is coming from where? Is that a nice, yeah, and is that a nice functional movement, meaning, let's say, what could you maybe be doing that in your day-to-day life? What could that look like? Let's see, you're here, you're reaching to get something. Come on, I'm gonna reach up into the cupboard. I gotta get down here, I'm kind of like, I gotta go and get up here. I'm gonna crawl up, like,
Getting your luggage out.
yeah, getting your luggage out. That can be something. Up into the airplane. We can never get on an airplane again. Okay, anything, one more. I like that. That was good, Mike. I like that, all those.
It makes me do that.
Good. What's another one? Tell me yours.
I was gonna do the Palloff press variation.
Oh, I love all of those.
So hold that.
What is great about the Palloff press is there's so much modification.
Wide base.
Mm-hmm.
Long lever arm.
Uh-huh. And he's only moving his arms, but what muscle groups are keeping the movement from happening?
Everything in the torso.
Uh-huh. That's some super burny doodle-doo.
Start with a wider.
Is that a
it's gonna be-
technical?
You want to burn your abs? I mean, everyone just stand and just do just that. Stand and just be really taut and just arms and put your wrists, whatever these things are, your hands together, make a fist and just forward and then back.
So if it's too hard, you don't have to go take your arms out as far.
Uh-huh, because that's changing the who?
The lever arm.
Yeah.
If this is too easy, narrow basis support.
Ooh, what is that challenge? Everyone put your feet together now, right next to each other. Does that make your if your base of support is smaller, is it easier or harder on your balance?
Harder.
Yay! What does that resemble?
Can't make it.
Yes.
See, that's easier because like now I don't have to bend my knees. So
Right. And they can be using your, and if it depending on, yeah, so fantastic. Anywho, that was really great. Yay, thank you. I love, the Palloff presses are so awesome. All right, was there anything from the interweb?
I don't know what even.
Let's double check if there's any interweb activity. I have to confess that sometimes I forget about you all. I'm trying to be better about not forgetting about the interweb. Okay, we're good. Awesome. Well, we'll take your questions later, interweb. Okay, anything else? Are we good? What's our buzzword for today? 2 buzzwords? Uh-huh. What's his one? Time under tension. Those are such good concepts. All right, anyhow, we're onward and forward to our next amazing speaker. Here, let me get you. I love it. He's got his little, he needs to have eyes.
I know, it's very cute. I do not have technology PowerPoint, so we will not have any technical difficulties. But I do have notes, so I'm going to be referring to my notes to make sure that I don't forget anything. No, I'm good. Yeah.
Just one moment.
Standing by.
Standing by.
Standing by. I'm just going to use that clock. I can see that clock. Okay. Oh, geez. Yes, I put page numbers on them. Was it? It's because my jacket's too tight. I can't reach with my arms. My jacket's too tight.
No, you did so much hard work here. You've got strong enough to bend with your...
My knees actually work. Yeah. They work much better. Yes, they do. Just let me know when we're ready, Christopher.
You are goodsies.
Okay, cool. Hi, guys. Hello. Thanks for having me. My name is Shannon Miller-Lutz. I am not a regular presenter here, so I thought I'd just introduce myself. I went to Florida State to study music and theater, and when I was 19, I met a boy over spring break. And then a year later, I moved to Maryland, where he was from, and I went to University of Maryland, College Park. That was a 34-year detour on my childhood dream to live in Florida. While I was in the Baltimore area, I was a top producing real estate agent with Keller Williams for 16 years. And I moved into coaching about 4 years ago. I am a transformational mindset coach. And like Tonya talked about how they're always looking for motor patterns, I look for behavioral patterns, and I help you break those patterns that aren't serving you anymore. So this shift into coaching allowed me to relocate here to St. Pete almost 2 years ago with my current husband. And I met Christopher at a networking event. And I started doing physical therapy probably about 1.5 years ago. I work with Tonya and with Mike. And like we just said, I'm seeing great improvement in my knees, especially in my shoulders. So this has been great because I'm unfortunately well-versed in shoulders because I have 10 pins and a plate holding mine together. I will show Ken my x-ray later. He'll be like, what did you do? So I just want to thank the whole team here at Best Day because they're awesome. So what I'm here to talk about is we've been focusing on physical fitness. I'm going to talk about mental fitness, specifically how to grow the 3 core mental muscles to thrive in challenging times. And let's face it, the last couple of years have been pretty challenging, right? And it doesn't seem to be changing. It just seems to be, well, it's changing, but not in maybe a good sense, right? It's just more of the same stuff every day. So, you know, people are probably feeling the stress of it. We're tired, you know, it's just something new all the time. So most likely we are in average mental fitness shape. So if you compare it to physical fitness, it's like climbing just the small hills of life with relatively low stress and anxiety. But what has been happening the last couple of years specifically is it's a mountain, right? And we're not in a mental fitness state to climb that mountain. So we need to work on getting more mentally fit so that when life gives us mountains, which it is right now, that we can climb that with relative ease, okay? So, you know, we're working from home. If you have kids, maybe the kids are in and out of schools. We're trying to be vigilant to keep everybody healthy and happy. There's a lot of, you know, drama on social media. This is all a mountain. So let's not blame that mountain because life's going to happen. We need to be able to enjoy climbing that mountain and increase our mental fitness. So what is mental fitness? It's your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. Did you know that it takes 3 positive thoughts to wipe out 1 negative thought? It's a 3-to-1 ratio. And all these negative thoughts and feelings impact your peak performance, your peace of mind, and your relationships. So the original Positive Intelligence program, which is what I'm teaching you a little bit about here today, is based on a Stanford study. It's a research study of hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, Stanford students, world-class athletes, and over 500,000 participants from over 50 countries. This was an incredible research study. And it determined that the root cause of mental fitness is just 3 core muscles. You can read all about it in the New York Times bestselling book called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine, and you spell his last name Chamine. I was trained by Shirzad, and I'm certified as a positive intelligence coach. He's a great guy. So, what are these 3 core muscles? They are the saboteur intercept, self-command, and sage. So I'm going to tell you what these are. The saboteur intercept is just noticing when you're in a negative state. And what is a negative state? It's any time you have a negative thought or emotion. These negative thoughts and emotions, they travel along these well-developed neural pathways because they were formed in our brains when we were kids. And they were formed as a way to protect us from real or perceived dangers. And as we get older, we outgrow the need for these saboteurs, and that's how they become saboteurs, because they start getting in our way of being productive and happy. Now, this research has shown we don't sabotage ourselves in like 1 million different ways. There are only 10 saboteurs. You only sabotage yourself in these 10 ways, and most of us don't even have all 10 really at play, maybe 3 or 4. The master saboteur is the judge. We all have this guy. And the judge has 3 modalities. It's judging yourself, judging others, and judging circumstances. So judging yourself looks like, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm so stupid, those kind of negative thoughts. Judging others is looking at others and saying, well, they're not as organized as me. They're not as into being a perfectionist as me. So they're less than, and it's a way to make ourselves feel better. And then the third modality is judging your circumstances. So that's, I can be happy when I get the job, the car, the relationship, the house, whatever. I can't be happy now. I can only be happy when something happens. So I'm going to be transparent. And when I went through this training myself, I thought back how my judge showed up in my life. And especially in the teenage years. I mean, that's not fun, right? Teenage years. They were all present. The strongest one was judge of others. And I was so insecure that I frequently would put people down to make myself feel better. So does anyone, hearing this judge modality, is anyone like, oh gosh, my judge was like the judge of self or the judge of circumstances? Does anybody want to share what maybe their judge tells them? Yeah.
I think today's time is just so much comparison out there. So for myself, I'll just, on social media or with friends and hearing what other people are doing.
Yeah. So it sounds like judge of self, like they look so happy and I'm not happy. They look like they've got all their shit together, excuse my French, and I don't. So that comparison, that's definitely a really strong judge. And I mentioned that social media drama. It's crazy, right? Thank you so much for sharing. So on top of the judge, there are 9 saboteurs. They're called Accomplice Saboteurs. And I'm going to name them. You don't have to write them down. You have to remember them. But I'm just going to tell you what they are because some of them might sound familiar. The avoider, controller, hyperachiever, hyperrational, hypervigilant, pleaser, restless, stickler, and victim. Now, these saboteurs, they live in the brainstem, in the limbic system, and parts of the left brain. This is that fight or flight survivor part of our brain, right? And when they fire a negative thought, your cortisol levels increase, right? Constant negative thoughts can actually shrink your hippocampus, which is the part of your brain responsible for cognitive functioning. So it's your ability to plan, to think, to be creative, to reason, and your impulse control. It's basically this executive functioning part of your brain. It just shuts it down. And then the other side of the brain, we have the sage. This is what we call it in positive intelligence. It's the sage part of the brain, and that lives in the empathy circuitry, the middle prefrontal cortex, and just other parts of your right brain. So there's a few chapters in the book that really go into the science behind this. Just know that you don't have one brain, you have 2 brains, and they function very differently. Now, the saboteurs, they do motivate you, but they motivate you through negative emotions like fear, guilt, stress, anger, and insecurity. And then the sage motivates you through things like empathy and curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. Well, negative thoughts are good for you though, right? Think about putting your hand on a hot stove. That alert is great, right? Because you want to feel the pain so that you stop doing it. Much like, Mike always tells me, if it hurts, stop doing it. Your body's talking to you. So pain is good. We just don't want to keep our hand on that hot stove. We want to move it away. So this is called intercepting your saboteurs. This is the first muscle, the saboteur intercept muscle. It's like putting up a wanted poster for your saboteurs, because once you've identified them, you can see them a little easier, right? So that's the first thing, is just noticing when you're in a saboteur mode. Let's see, now I lost my place. Okay. So the next muscle I want to talk about is the sage muscle. So we have sage powers, and we have something called the sage perspective. The 5 sage powers are empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. More specifically, empathy for yourself, which is really hard, right? Because we talk bad to ourselves all the time. Empathy for others. Curiosity, but without blame or judgment. So just being curious. The joy of creativity. Seeking guidance from your elder, wiser self. So imagining yourself out in the future, like how would I want to react in this moment from a future place? And that's really tied and grounded in your values. And then laser focused on an action without any distractions. Those distractions being your saboteurs. And the sage operates from what's called the sage perspective. And that is that every outcome and circumstance is a gift and an opportunity. So think about the gifts of COVID and the quarantine. Was it more time with your family? Was it a space to kind of like get off that, that wheel of just go, 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 where you could be like, what do I want my life to be? So there's always a gift, even when something that you might judge as being, quote, bad, there's always a gift and an opportunity if you look for it. So let me share with you one of my favorite stories, and it illustrates the sage perspective. It's called the Stallion Story. It comes from China, and it's a fable. So there was a farmer, and he had a stallion, and the stallion was his prized possession. So he entered it into a competition, and it won. And the neighbors heard about it, and they all came over, and they were like, "Oh, farmer, that's so awesome. Your stallion won this competition." And they were just going on, and he said, "Well, who knows what is good and what is bad?" And they left thinking, well, that's kind of an odd response. So word gets out about this great stallion that won this competition, and thieves come and take this stallion. The neighbors hear about it. They come over with their condolences, and they're like, "Oh, gosh, we're so sorry, farmer. We heard your stallion was stolen, and that's so horrible." And his response, of course, is, who knows what is good and what is bad? And the neighbors kind of go off shaking their head, thinking that's just odd. So a little while later, the stallion breaks free from his captors, and on the way back to the farm, he picks up this little group of wild mares. So he shows up with extra horses. And the neighbors are like, "Whoa, that's pretty awesome." So they come over and they're like, "Gosh, that's so great. Not only do you have your stallion back, but you got all these wild mares." So what does the farmer say? Who knows what is good and what is bad? Shortly after that, the farmer's adult son is working on taming one of these wild mares, and he's thrown off and he breaks his leg. Well, at this point, the neighbors don't even come over because they're like, we know what this guy's going to say, right? Who knows what is good and what is bad? Right after that, a war breaks out in the region, and the Imperial Army is going from village to village looking for able-bodied young men to fight in this war. Who knows what is good and what is bad? Life is happening for you, not to you. So if you remember nothing else from what I'm presenting here tonight, just remember the sage perspective that we don't know what is good and what is bad. Just trust that there is a gift and an opportunity in there somewhere. All right, going on next. Now, whether you believe that something is good or is bad, that's what's going to happen. So you can choose to believe your saboteurs, that things are bad, or you can choose to believe your sage, that things are good. Because whichever one you believe, that's what your brain's going to work out. So focus on that positive, right? Because if you stay in the negative thoughts, it's just going to vortex. Negativity just begets more negativity and more, right? You know those kind of people? It's just like, it's like you don't want to be around them because it's just this vortex of negativity, right? Well, it also works on positivity. If you're in positivity, like Christopher, best day ever, all the time, it's just good things happen, right? Good things happen. It's just a vortex. It's physics, right? That's just how it works. So how do we shift from saboteur to sage? This is the second muscle. It's the self-command muscle. You know, we don't wake up every day going, I feel like having a really stressful, like crazy day where I get nothing done, right? Nobody wakes up and says that to themselves. So why does it happen? It happens because you are not in control. Your saboteurs are in control. So we need to rewire those neural pathways in our brains by intercepting them and removing our hand from that hot stove. And we do this by what is called a PQ rep. PQ stands for positivity quotient. Much like an IQ or an EQ, right? We have a PQ. So these are short, 10-second little reps that use your different senses to bring you back into a grounded state. And they're very similar to anything mindfulness, so like yoga, meditation, anything like that focuses your mind. So let's do some PQ reps together, okay? I'm gonna put this down. Let's do it. So first I want you to just take a couple deep breaths in through, close your eyes, in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as your breathing goes back to its natural state, just notice the rising and falling of your chest or stomach with each breath. And I want you to feel the weight of your seat in the chair. Really feel the weight of your body in the chair. Feel the ground under your feet. Really connect with the ground. All your toes, wiggle them around if you need to feel all those toes. And let's shift into some audio. So let's focus on whatever we can hear that's farthest away. Maybe it's someone talking in the next room, or it's traffic outside your window. And then shift into what's closest to you. Maybe it's just listening to your breath. Continue to breathe normally. Let's do some tactile. Just put your hands together like in a praying motion and slowly rub your hands together, feeling all the sensations in your fingertips. Really focus on what those fingertips, texture, temperature. All right, let's take 2 more breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, really deep. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. All right, who wants to share how that felt or how you feel after doing those PQ reps? Yeah.
More centered. Grounded.
Yeah, grounded, more centered, relaxed. Yeah. So imagine taking a little PQ break in the middle of a stressful day. You're running around and you're like, oh, I'm feeling so anxious and crazy. Like I don't want to feel like my shoulders are up in my ears, right? Taking a few minutes and doing all of those were PQ reps, right? It's just a matter of taking the time, a minute, 2 minutes maybe. And the goal is to do them throughout the day. So the difference between this and doing things like meditating in the morning or doing yoga is doing them throughout the day to break up those patterns. So for example, first thing in the morning, at lunch, mid-afternoon, before you go to bed. If you're one that wakes up in the middle of the night frantic, like, oh, I forgot that email, right? That's how I was when I was selling real estate. Doing it before bed is really super helpful to calm down those saboteurs so you can get some sleep, okay? Super easy, right? The thing is remembering and noticing when you get into saboteur mode to intercept the saboteur and then do the PQ reps, okay? Now, if we had your head in an MRI machine, we would actually see neurons firing in the right portion, that sage portion of your brain when you did PQ reps. So there's a lot of brain science behind this, okay? Now this is it's an operating system, just like your computer. So how great would it be to have an operating system that when you're feeling stressed or anxious or angry or whatever, that you could just plug and play this operating system, right? 1, notice when you're having a negative thought or emotion. You are in saboteur mode. Take your hand off that hot stove. 2, use your self-command muscle. Choose to do PQ reps to shift into sage. 3, you're going to assume that sage perspective. Is there a gift or an opportunity here? You may not even know what it is at the moment. That's okay. You may not know until a year later, right? But just trust that there is a gift and an opportunity here. And then 4, you're going to generate that gift by using one of those sage powers of empathy and curiosity and creativity and calm, laser-focused action. Now, this is usually the point in the presentation where your judge is like, okay, this is crazy. There's no way this is going to work. No, right? Because what happens is when you start your saboteur intercept muscle, they're like, oh, she sees us. Oh, crap, right? So just like there's something in your brain called the reticular activate system. So if you've ever bought a car, you know, and you're like, all of a sudden you see this car, and I never saw this car on the road before, but because you're now looking for it, your unconscious mind is looking for it, it's called the RAS system, reticular activate system. So now that I've set this in your brains for your saboteurs, you're going to start noticing all these negative thoughts and emotions. It's not that you're being more negative, it's just you're noticing it more, okay? So the judge is now saying, this is crazy, it's not going to work because he knows what's coming. This is possible. The speed of how quickly you can shift is based on how strong your self-command muscle is. So this is a practice, right? And what the study showed is that you need to do it for 15 minutes a day. So like I said, broken up like 2-3 minutes, 4 times a day, for a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks for there to really be a change. And you want to do these, like I said, throughout the day. Just like when you're working on a muscle, you can't just pick up 1 5-pound weight and be like, woo, look at that bicep, right? You got to do a lot of reps. So it's the same thing. You've got to do these PQ reps a lot in order to work those muscles, okay? So I've talked about the 3 core muscles, the saboteur intercept, the sage, and the self-command. And if you're interested in how you sabotage yourself, there's actually a free assessment on the Positive Intelligence website. If you just go to positiveintelligence.com, you'll see in the menu, it just says saboteurs. You click on that, you take this assessment, it's like 5-10 minutes, and it'll email your results. It won't tell you the judge, because everybody has that one, but it will show you out of those 9 accomplice saboteurs, which ones are towards the top, which ones are the ones that really kind of get in your way. And then as you click through the report, it tells you the lies that the saboteur tells you. It tells you what the thoughts might be. It says where it may have been created in your childhood. It's really fascinating. And it's a way to really learn how to identify and put that wanted poster of your saboteur so you learn more and more about it. If anyone is interested in going over the results or you want to talk to me about the program, I'm more than happy. Christopher has my information. I'm Shannon Miller Lutz. It's Shannon at smlcoaching.com. And hopefully with the new year, not only are you going to be physically fit, but mentally fit. Yay! Thank you.
Question?
Oh, yeah,
What's
question.
that book again that you mentioned in the beginning?
Just Positive Intelligence.
All right.
Shirzad Shamin.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's good.
Good.
It's really good.
I'll add to my list.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. It's a great week.
Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is like